Okay, that's the rule. Okay, Melania, sit here and then I'll welcome you in. Yes, here, and then you need to put headphones, which, okay, now I can hear me, which is good. So welcome to this session where we're going to discuss about SME climate action. So I remind you that this session is live stream, so we hope that there are many SMEs listening to us from across the world that couldn't obviously fly here. But I have to say that I'm very pleased to have an SME on this panel that is going to talk on behalf of the millions and millions of SMEs around the world. No small task. So the SME Climate Hub was launched just before Glasgow. And I'm very pleased to be here. Mazda, don't go very far, come here. I'm very pleased to be here with Mazda because the idea of the SME Climate Hub started with her when she was working in the International Chamber of Commerce. And so the Women Business Coalition, Exponential Roadmap, and Mazda at ICC decided that it was about time that we create an initiative for SMEs. As we know, the SMEs are the lifeblood of the economies. And it's very important that we bring them along this climate journey, because it's not that they have plenty of resources nor time to think about the very complex task, which is to tackle climate change. So in this spirit, we wanted to provide a simple one-stop shop for SMEs to commit to net zero, to calculate their emissions, to report them, and to learn. And since then, something that was a good idea, and these good ideas, they sometimes last like 2 COPs. Well, here we are, 4th COPs, and the SME Climate Hub is building very well. So there are more than close to 9,000 companies that have committed to climate action. When we ask companies, SMEs, when do you want to commit? To 2030, 2040, or 2050? Most of them, they say 2030. So it shows the level of ambition. And this is very hard because they are SMEs. They might not have the resources, the knowledge, the money. But on the other hand, it is feasible because of they operate in much more simple context. That said, we have developed a lot of education tools, action modules, calculators to help them on their way. So I'm very pleased to be here with many people that are leading the way in bringing SMEs to the climate journey. And today we're going to hear from Melanie Larkins, the Director for Global Sustainability at LinkedIn. I have to admit my favorite social media tool, who's going to give us a keynote. And then we will have 2 firesides. The first one with Mastercard and ekko, where Mazda works now, which is great because she's joining one of the leading SMEs on sustainability, ekko. And then afterwards, we'll have a second fire chat with the CEO of INGKA, Jesper Brodin, which has been supporting big time the SME Climate Hub, and then we will close. So without further ado, let me invite Melanie to come on stage and tell us about what LinkedIn is doing for SMEs. Please come here. Yes, you removed your.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. Hi. So thanks, everyone. Thanks to Women Business Coalition. Thank you to the SME Climate Hub. I'm really excited to be here and talk about what we can do to help SMEs, help the value chain as we're accelerating progress to a global net zero transition. One of the things I think I want to point out is I think we think about SMEs as something kind of out there. We think of them as really separate sometimes from big business. But at the end of the day, every big business started as a small one. every founder at one point, like Alan Blue, who's here with us, one of our co-founders for LinkedIn, at some point it was a small business. It had the support that it needed, and eventually it grew into a medium-sized business, had more support, became a large one. So I think it's important to remember that as we're talking about SMEs, it's maybe where they're starting, but it's not always where they end. It's kind of a transition. They account for 90% of businesses. They account for 70% of global workforce. So really a central piece of the fabric of our society, a really central piece to the transition to net zero, and a really huge group that we need to make sure that we're supporting. And it's not just one type of support, it's building an ecosystem of support around these businesses. Sometimes they don't know what it even means to be sustainable. Like, what does sustainability mean as a topic? What does that mean for my business? What am I supposed to do about it? A lot of founders, a lot of owners, a lot of people in small businesses, small enterprise, they know that they want to do something, but they don't know where to start. They're lost, they don't know where to go for funding, and they don't know who to go to for help either. So one thing that we've created is the Sustainability Resources Hub, using tools from initiatives like the SME Climate Hub to help SMEs with just that. So looking at the education around sustainability as a foundational topic, what does it mean? But how to think about targets, what target to set, how to set it, how to measure it, how to track progress on that goal. And it's really important to do that because we have global climate goals, global net zero goals, but we need SMEs to be a part of that value chain to meet those goals. For us as LinkedIn, we have a value chain. Small businesses, SMEs are part of our value chain, and we need them to go net zero so that we can reach our goals as well. Part of it is financing. So I heard someone in a session yesterday talking about the need for education for SMEs just to find financing, just to know what's available to them. And that's kind of the one side of financing, but then how do they get access? Some of that is trust, some of that is networking, some of that is building relationships, but a lot of it starts with just awareness and education and being able to know what's out there and, again, how to get it. And what we're finding also is obviously green talent, skills that they need to then be able to move forward on their climate goals, just like we're all trying to figure that out. So we just released our 2024 LinkedIn Green Skills Report, the Global Green Skills Report, and kind of the highlight that I want to share with y'all is that we need to double the green talent pool by 2050 if we want to meet our climate goals. That's a lot of people that need to be upskilled, that need to be trained, that need to be re-skilled in green skills so that we can all meet our goals. SMEs are a huge part of that. They need green talent too. Once they have the education, have set the targets, then who does the work? We need that, especially where SMEs are so important, especially in the construction, development space, the built environment. That is really hard to do as an SME. We have things that are highly technical where the profit margin is so slim that they need that support for people that can do the job, the funding to make that shift. To give you an example, let's say that you are a small flooring manufacturer and you know that you want to switch your raw material to something that's more sustainable. It sounds great. That's a really admirable thing to do, but it's likely going to be more expensive. And so how do you do that? How do you afford it? And then on the engineering side, now that you've sourced that new product, how do you integrate that now into your new product? It might require a new manufacturing process. It might require sourcing from a different location. It might require so many things, and you need talent to be able to help you do that. So that's one of the things that we're really passionate about, is sharing that information about this gap in the green skills that's widening, gap in the supply and the demand. For the supply is increasing over time, where the demand is not increasing at pace with the supply, or the supply is not increasing at pace with demand. So we are focused also on helping to upskill and train people through our resources like the Sustainability Resources Hub, but also through LinkedIn Learning. If you haven't taken a course, go check it out. We have all kinds of courses from reporting to AI and sustainability to climate justice. And you can take those classes, you can take those courses. We've unlocked a set specifically for COP. And it's helpful. You can just get some new knowledge, build a green skill yourself, and then be able to integrate that into your business, into your life even. Another resource that I've learned about is one called Hurd, which is HURD. And this is a free app that you can use, and it gives employers the opportunity to hear from their employees. They get a chance to understand how empowered their employees feel to take climate action in their job. You can get kind of a range of how empowered they feel, how educated they are to be able to do it. And then it takes them down a learning path to understand how they can integrate green skills into their job. So it's very tactical. I really like it. I think one of those gaps of once we upskill people, once we train them, if their job is not one that is a sustainability title, then what do they do after they finish these programs? What we focus on at LinkedIn is really green skills as opposed to green jobs. For us, a green job is something that uses green skills, and for us, green skills is something that people are using and the skills that we need to move to the sustainable future. So you could be an accountant and using green skills by working on carbon accounting. For us, that's a green job. And so you're learning how to build your skills, build your green skills so that you can bring that into other jobs. It expands the talent that you have access then to, which is really important for SMEs. And on our platform, we also have a new feature where you can mark your climate commitments there. So more and more talent cares about what companies are doing, what you're committing to. It's really important, especially to Gen Z. So the fact that you can highlight, this is what we're doing on the platform, it gives you much more ability to attract the green talent that you're looking for. So it's kind of the funding side, it's the talent and development side, it's the education side. There are so many pieces that build this ecosystem that we need around SMEs so that they can be a part of this value chain shift into the new net zero world, and to make sure that it's an inclusive, just transition as well. Oftentimes SMEs are founded by employing large numbers of women, large numbers of marginalized people, global south, indigenous people, and it's really important to make sure that we wrap them in this ecosystem so that we can all move into this new net zero future together. So thank you. With that, we will move on into our fireside chat.
Thank you. So let me invite David and Oli to come on stage, please. And Melanie, thank you. Very interesting. I think there is, what I take away is this huge gap skill that exists, which, we all agree with you, and the incredible tools that we have now available for people to be upskilled. And I have learned LinkedIn Learning, and it's so fit for purpose, right? Because you also know how to deliver those courses for the audience. But what I find that it's quite interesting in the times that we're living is how can people show their commitment by showing to the world through their LinkedIn profile that they are climate proof, that they have learned. And I think this is super important in the times that we're living. I'm also very happy that you mentioned Hurd, and I have my colleague there, Sophie Lanvin, who's working with many companies to upskill their employees. And it's a great resource, and we need so many of these resources, right? Because we do not know so much. And it all starts with humility, knowing that we don't know, but then this eagerness to learn that is so important. So let me move with you. Let me give you this. So let's move to the real world action. So Mastercard, David, can you tell us what you do at Mastercard, your role, and what Mastercard is doing? Then I'll bring it to Oli to introduce himself, and then we'll jump into some questions, which I'm going to anticipate for you. Very simple is why, what, why are you engaging with SMEs? Why do you need to engage with big companies? What are you doing? And what are the challenges that you face? But this will come afterwards.
Sure. Thanks, Maria. And thank you to the SME Climate Hub and to the other organizers here at the Pavilion. Really pleased to be here. So David Eichberg, I'm VP of ESG Strategy at Mastercard. And we're really very much focused on the importance of small business, very inherent to our business model as it is. Always been very significant around strengthening small businesses and driving financial inclusion, but in the face of climate change, it's increasingly important, both from an adaptation and resilience standpoint, and also part of making it a just and equitable transition.
Excellent, yeah, thank you for having us. So I'm Oli Cook, one of the co-founders and CEO of ekko. We are a B2B2C business, and we work with banks, payment companies, SMEs, to help them empower their end consumer to understand their impact when they make transactions, and then use it as a moment to trigger behavioral change or do something good. We're really obsessed with transactions, so when you buy a coffee or when you go out for dinner, whatever it might be, because there are 10 trillion interactions happening around the world every year. And we think if we can give those moments a moment of education, so you can understand your impact, whether it be your environmental impact on that transaction, and use it as an engagement tool to say, hey, you can do something a bit better, or use it as a moment to fund amazing projects, like many of them are here today. That's what we're obsessed with.
Thank you. So, David, I think you just launched a report, right? Bringing your experience about engaging with SMEs on climate action. Can you tell us more?
Yes, absolutely. So just this week, the Mastercard Center for Inclusive Growth and Christensen Global Strategies, actually, shout out to Amy Christensen, who's the author of that report, is here, and Amy in her own right is a decades-long climate champion in building cross-sector collaboration. So thank you, Amy, for that amazing work on the report. This report we launched, it's entitled Unlocking the Power of Small Business to Drive Climate-Smart Inclusive Growth. And it really focuses on what are those elements that are going to ensure that small businesses need so that they can weather the storm, right, that we're undergoing, both economic and the physical storms. And the report found that it's a set of solutions built around data, capital, and a set of wraparound support that is really what small businesses need to survive and to thrive in the climate transition. So to give a little bit of a dimension to those, so data is really about enhancing data collection. It's going to be about the dissemination of that to help SMEs anticipate, both collect around this and anticipate, respond to the climate impacts, integrating that kind of climate-related data into the core parts of existing data gathering. We don't duplicate efforts, and ways in which we can provide more real-time risk data to SMEs as well. So an example of this, actually also supported through the Mastercard Strive Innovation Fund, Vested Impact. It's using data on a digital platform to automate reporting for SMEs around sustainability performance. And it's pulling together ways to make generating these reports much more automated, AI-driven, accessible, and cost-effective. So that in that way, SMEs are better able to service not necessarily just regulatory requirements, but also the expectations of corporates and investors out there as well, and how the banking sector is looking at this. This is a solution. There's already 2 million users on this platform today. In capital, it's about mobilizing and increasing access to capital, both for purposes of adaptation and for transition as well. And this is the kind of capital that has to be affordable, it has to be risk tolerant and more patient to provide the right kind of financial incentives and drive climate positive outcomes. An example here that you can probably relate to as well are new types of capital access payment structures. For instance, pay-as-you-go. So these are types of schemes where it can take out the upfront cost of having to buy outright equipment. In Nigeria, there's an example of Coolbox, which is basically enabling their solar-powered freezers so that micro vendors don't have to buy outright a freezer. They're essentially leasing and having space in a shared freezer within that marketplace. And then lastly, I just point out this wraparound support. This can range from being elements like financial training and assistance, market access for MSEs, so they can adopt more sustainable practices in climate smart ways. And an example there is Inclusive in the US, which supports community development credit unions. There's over 20 million, serving 20 million residents around the US. And through their solar lending professional training and certificate program, this equips community-based lenders who are often MSEs themselves, right, with the skills to implement financing initiatives along the lines of that types of green lending. So it's in all those kinds of and its combinations come together, it's even more powerful.
Thank you, David. 2 million is a lot, a lot of people. So it's great to hear that. And this double focus on adaptation and mitigation, I understand also critical. Let me move to Oli. because in your experience as an SME, but also supporting SME, what is the kind of support that SMEs need to advance on their climate resilience and transition?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things on that report. 2 million, that's fantastic, right? It just shows what we're seeing across the whole industry is that people are, and this needs to happen faster, shifting sustainability from being a burden into a opportunity that we are passionate about. I think sometimes we forget that businesses are run by people and people are passionate, and I want my business to do the good things. I think that this is fantastic. I think there's a number of things that people need to, or we can help with or facilitate. One is education. So people need to have the tools and access to upskill themselves. There's a huge passion about it, but also the majority of SMEs we speak to are really good at what they do, and they're excellent at that. They want to learn about other parts of it. They want to be more sustainable, but they don't have the tools or access. That's why things like the SME Climate Hub is fantastic. It gives me the tools to learn about an area, because I'm really good at what I do, but this kind of picks me up there. And then there are other ways that businesses need to think around how they communicate that to their customers as well, because businesses have to grow the lines that they actually care about, things like revenue, engagement, customer acquisition, things that are important to them. And thinking about ways that they can use what they care about in sustainability to further enhance their business. And then you get the double edge of the world's getting better, the consumers are increasing the size of my business, I'm doing something I'm deeply, deeply passionate about. I think that's a lovely trifecta that we can get to, and there are tools out there, there are businesses out there who are helping SMEs, and we're an SME helping SMEs, we're helping each other build the community.
You're an SME, but tomorrow you could be a Google as well, you know?
Maybe the day after, that'll be it.
Very good. So, very interesting, you know, they need to upskill, you know, they need to understand how to talk to the consumers that do not necessarily understand all the jargon that we speak here, and how to talk in a language that resonates with you and resonates with SMEs. So SMEs, as you know, committed SMEs can also support other SMEs understand what this is all about in the language that they understand, right? I
totally agree. I think there's an element of, you can't burden a customer with too much information, because just not just the way we're wired, right? We don't do that. Little bits of information, but you've got to think about the way that we phrase it with consumers and your end customer, whether it be an end business or end consumer, and that's around positivity. There is a bunch of research that proves that when you talk about positivity and positive reinforcement, you get engagement. And that's customer engagement, wanting to do more good things. And that's really, really, really important, that when we think about the way we educate customers about what we're doing or how their transactions have a footprint, make sure we frame it in a way that actually I want to read about and I want to engage in. And we often think about when we work with cards and payments, you go and buy something and the point of sale machine will tell you the footprint is X, whatever it might be. You've got to be careful that that doesn't then make a customer go, oh, I don't like this, I'm a bit scared, I'm going to step away, I'm fearful of it. Actually, it's you now know this is great. You're educated, now you can make a better choice next time, and that's fantastic, and it's all about positivity, and that's what we see as being a fundamental part of getting people who aren't spending their time in this space to just engage that little bit.
I suppose now, you know, you work a lot with SMEs so that they can understand the footprint, which is measure and then manage. How do they move, these SMEs? How do you think they move from that measurement to actual real action? Yeah, actually. Sorry about that. Real action, yeah.
Well, that's where we have to bring these additional types of capabilities and the types of wraparound support. So once you've had established that footprint, you have to have that means to be able to set a target. You also have the means to be able to understand how it's going to drive decarbonization. And again, the amazing work that things like the SME Climate Hub bring to bear. We are, at Mastercard, we are increasingly engaging our suppliers. We won't make our goal if they can't set goals similar to ours, but that's much more challenging with SMEs for the very reasons that were discussed here. They simply don't have that level of resource. They don't have that bench. They don't have that time. So it really requires very much a strong collaborative approach. And I think as we look across sectors, we need to, in the same ways that we came together and established things like CDP for even larger companies, the consistency of the asks are going to be very important so that SMEs can manage this going forward.
Yeah, that's why we created the SME Climate Hub, because we need that consistency, and also SMEs cannot afford to be asked 5 things, no, from different clients. And so if companies can point them to make a commitment through the SME Climate Hub, it works in the same way that we have done with the Science Based Targets Initiative. So as we know, as part of the Science Based Targets Initiative, Scope 3 is the most challenging part for companies. And we see that big companies engaging through supplier engagement, we call it supplier cascade, with the tier 1 suppliers. It's a very important way to tackle their Scope 3 emissions in a way that is also recognized by SBTi. And for small companies, they can come to the SME Climate Hub. So, we're here and this is a policy setup, right? And I was in a panel, earlier this year in Spain, and there was someone that worked in construction. And he asked me, I am committed. I want to do something. What can I do? And I'm sorry, I cannot tell him, go and upskill yourself. Right? I mean, we just need to know that what they need is support from the policymakers. They need that, right? So anyway, as we develop the SME Climate Hub, the idea is that once we learn enough, we will be able to channel these policy asks, in places like this one. And I was wondering, if you were to tell us what would be the policy ask that these SMEs will have, and this is new. So I understand that you don't need to give the perfect answer, because honestly, I don't think as a community we have been thinking in those terms, but they need that support in the same way that big companies need. So anything you can add to, and anything from the public as well in that regard, that's also welcome.
I don't know that I could have a specific policy ask, but as you were speaking there, Maria, my mind was going to some of the work that's happening right now in the UK, for instance, around bankers for net zero, and the work that they're doing particularly around how do we work together to address the SME sector around reporting requirements in ways that are going to bring forward the quality and the consistency and the integrity of the data that SMEs don't have all this time to gather, constructed in a way that is going to be very much in alignment with policymakers. So I think, and then ultimately, be able to unleash that in ways that are going to, again, deliver back to the financial institutions that the banks, that SMEs need to get loans from, back up to into corporate supply chains, and of course relative to the goals of policy. It's about that level of dialogue and making sure that seems like a very well thought out and operating environment. And I think that's where we need to see that, because SMEs are not likely to be able to, again, put all that together. They're going to have to find the allies in these different sectors that are going to help them to enable it in engagement with policymakers.
Thank you. What do you think?
Yeah, I probably have one that's kind of a bit slightly different, maybe from an entrepreneurial perspective, is that I do think there is an incredible space for entrepreneurs and for startups to help us all kind of advance and develop new technologies, new ideas, new initiatives to help SMEs or help multinationals. One of the things that's worked quite well in the UK around helping startups is an EIS investment scheme. And what that means is if you invest in a startup, you get some tax breaks. So ultra high net worth people or funds can invest and get tax breaks, which is fantastic. Whatever, we live in a world where businesses who are trying to tackle climate change and environmental issues, if you invest in them, you get a better tax break. Now, what that means is you get the money flow coming in to the entrepreneurs early on to just learn and have a go and try and change the game. And that's an existing tool that is already out there. It's not a new setup, but you can end up funding the future LinkedIn and the future Google, but in the sustainability space. And that would be incredibly exciting. And it allows people to have that entrepreneurial spirit and encourage people to go, well, if I'm going to build a business, I'm going to do it in this space. And I think that'd be fantastic.
Wonderful. Now, just to conclude this section of the event, what is how you're very committed, to supporting SMEs. What is the advice that you will give to other multinationals that engage with SMEs? What lesson learned, or how would you advise them to engage? How would they engage with SMEs and support them?
Shall I go first? So specifically multinationals. We work with multinationals around the place. I think there's a few parts of it. One is, as a multinational, engage the community, have that conversation. The other big part of it, specifically multinationals, embrace advancement in technology, embrace the startups of the world who are helping you advance your business, and that's really important. The final one that I have, and it's a company mantra that we talk about all the time, is start by starting. That's not, as a multinational, go, oh, it's imperfect, we need to wait 5 years until blah, 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 and I need to reduce my risk and all that kind of stuff. We don't have time, that's a ridiculous position to be in. Start by starting, engage, and I think that's how we need to progress. Like, view it as a positive opportunity, not we need to start thinking about risk mitigation.
I love the only way to get somewhere is to start, right? Thank you.
I guess I'll use it. I'll bring it back to a little bit about where I started in thinking about, I guess maybe how Mastercard would approach it, since we're really very focused on enabling financial inclusion around the digital economy, since that's essentially core to the business model. Earlier this year, there was a group of economists came together, including the Mastercard Economics Institute, and to compile the largest study of economic impacts of hurricanes in the U.S. And one of the findings of this report found that businesses that were in the path of the hurricane that had only a brick or mortar presence suffered a drop in their sales of something on the order of 56%. By contrast, those that also had an online presence still suffered an impact, but not to that same level, by less than half, about 23%. So what that tells us, those kinds of statistics, is that just about anyone, whether you are a hardware vendor in North Carolina or you're a grocer on the corner in Nairobi, being connected into the digital economy is a way to help become more resilient to the impacts of climate change. And so I guess then, as we were to think about how we would engage, it's really understand the challenges and the pain points as well as the opportunities that SMEs face, recognize what your enabler, what it is that you bring to the table in order to empower and to help them be more successful. And that's, as we approach it, we work with brands. I recognize companies here, right, that Mastercard works with. We work with financial institutions and fintechs all over the world. We're ready to partner in all sorts of ways in order to help you enable the SMEs to be more successful.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll keep working on it, because 2 million, it's a lot, but nothing comparing to the challenge that we have ahead. And because we have the Google of the future here, I hope that you can help us get there. I think, Amy, as I invite Jesper to come on stage, I think Amy wanted to add a few thoughts.
I just wanted to note, okay, you can hear me, that in the report that we did, we have a lot of case studies of these enablers, the data, the capital, and the wraparound support to the small businesses. And when you asked about the policymaker ask, I think there are maybe three things. One of our examples was the Ghana Climate Innovation Center in Ghana, where they actually they provide incubation to climate tech companies, small businesses, and they also help to green existing small businesses to help them to access new business opportunities. And they engage the policymakers in Ghana to create that market environment for those clean tech startups, to have a good market environment to scale into. And then they also help those, when the greening of the companies, the small businesses, they then get access. So for instance, multinationals who have offices in Ghana will then source from those local green companies. So an ask from policymakers is also procurement. So getting our governments to procure locally and from green small businesses is a really important ask for that market opportunity creation. So just wanted to add that ask to policymakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the previous speakers, and let's move to you.
Hey.
How are you?
Yeah, fine. I have nothing to add. It's been so interesting to listen to the previous speakers here, so let's see how we do.
It's good, but you come from the real economy, right? And you're engaging with businesses that are in the real economy, are facing the challenges, are very motivated as well. And it's really inspiring to walk into an IKEA store and to see how you're bringing seamlessly, solutions to your customers, right? So, well, tell us about what IKEA is doing in that respect.
In the respect of inviting customers, you mean, or overall?
Or SMEs, yeah.
Okay, SMEs. So, no, I think there are two tracks that we are pursuing. We're actually starting, as Oli was speaking to. So, obviously, in the commitment that we have in IKEA to be compliant to the Paris Agreement, that means we need to reduce our footprint by 90% 2050, by 50% already 2030. So that engages Scope 3, the whole basically ecosystem. We have today, if you go upstream, we have about 1,200 big suppliers in IKEA. Overall, if you look at suppliers, it's about 400,000 SMEs that are engaged within our direct and indirect network. So it's a big ecosystem and a lot of companies out there. Obviously, this cohort of companies will be engaged through the systematic approach of implementing code of conducts and collaboration around achieving the goals. But then together with you, we actually discovered a massive potential, because IKEA has today millions of customers, business-to-business customers, that we basically thought together that we would try to influence. I'm not sure how much we can account for from a systematic approach to what that means from a carbon downstream footprint for IKEA, but it doesn't matter. We think it's an inspiration for us to support the movement. So we've been on a journey together using the SME Hub and using IKEA's vast network of millions of customers to actually inspire people to join the movement.
And in your experience with them, how we can encourage those millions, to advance on their climate actions? What are the carrots and the sticks that they need?
Well, first of all, I would like maybe to add to the conversation also. I think we very often generalize SMEs, and I've seen myself doing a lot of mistakes there. And very often, typically, a big company would speak, in a way that they need more help, they're not fast enough, they don't have the skills, The truth is that most of the SMEs that we know, they're much faster, they're much more well-educated, they're much more willing to invest than we would think. So typically, in the ecosystem, we have so many family businesses, and if there's anything a family business knows, is you need to develop to be competitive for the next generation and so forth. So I think the big learning is we need to speak business language. And as we progress on the journey with everything we do in IKEA when it comes to being climate smart, it is also about being cost smart. Not only being compliant, but actually being competitive. When we speak to our clients and our upstream suppliers, we say there's no way we will be competitive in the future unless we are a leader in this space. But it is true that the feedback that we get from a lot of the first interactions where we have started, we started by starting, and the impact is nowhere near where we need it to be. We hope that it can be millions of customers through IKEA that are actually inspired to join. But they think it's too complicated. So the modeling that we are presenting, even if, of course, climate smart and modeling of climate is requiring certain metrics and systematics, I think we are making it a bit too complicated. So if I would give the simple example of any type of industry, you have it needs to start by a commitment to Paris. Number two, it's about understanding again, 80% right is better than waiting forever to get started. Any industry can make a tabletop comparison and understand where your majority of your carbon would sit in your model, scope 1, 2, and 3. And the applications are not that difficult. Try renewable energy, try looking into what type of source of material, etc., etc. So I'm looking forward to, together with you and to other stakeholders here, if we can find, by putting the customers at the heart and ask them to be demanding, if we can present the solutions in a lighter and more digestible way, and thereby increasing the frequency of people who engage in it. Everybody needs to be compliant, and probably sooner than they think. So if you don't want yourself, there will be somebody asking you in your value chain to be compliant in these terms. So how do we convince them that it's actually good business?
Everything that you say are things that we're seeing. And let me tell you. So IKEA, the company, has been supporting the SME Climate Hub since day one, but also using it in different markets and bringing to us that experience. So when we run an NGO like ours, don't have customers like you do. So this collaboration is so interesting, and we are so thankful, Jesper. And it is the kind of things, we need to do more with business. And it is true that there is going to be, I agree with you, it's complex, but they will have to learn. So, and how do we find ourselves in the middle, right? We need to reduce the complexity, but it is not easy. Yeah? And they're going to be asked by the regulators to do the reporting. They're going to be asked to do things. And so, as you say, the earlier the start, the better. Perfection is an enemy of progress. So we need to start somewhere and keep moving. We need to adapt materials to their level of awareness, right? What kind of tools, I'm sure you use ours, but what kind of tools are you developing as well for them, or guidance?
No, but I think when we look at the upstream, we basically work with a delegation of responsibilities. We ask our big suppliers to support the smaller ones in the transition. And again, when you speak the language of regulation, the energy is low, to be honest. That's what we experience. When you speak to I think what Oli was talking to, so when you speak to, these are leaders. They care about the generations to come. They see the impact of climate change. So when you speak to the heart, we see a lot of interest. When you speak to the cost, everybody is awake. I have to share with you, coming here so I went to a hairdresser, and I thought I'd ask her about SME Climate. And so she was the owner of the saloon, and so I asked her what she thinks about climate change. Super worried, concerned. I asked her what she does as a business owner in order to be, on the track with the rest of us. And there was not a lot of good answers to it. But then before I left, she said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to propose that I move my business to one of the IKEA stores, because then I don't have an energy footprint. I thought it was brilliant. So I'll never go back there again.
Business line on IKEA.
No, but again, I think it's all about how do we put things simple. And I do believe it's really interesting, because I've been speaking to experts in We Mean Business, in WRI, in SBTI. So when people say it's simple, it's not. So we have an opportunity to, again, make it simple and not perfect. And by doing that, I think we will have an opportunity to engage more, to actually reap the benefits. And then again, I give you one more example. We, in our food business, so we have both big and small players in our food business. When we engaged in reducing our food waste with 50%, it doesn't matter if you're an SME or a big company, so everybody understands it's good for carbon, for climate, but of course for your cost situation. So again, if we tie it to things that are obvious and that are easy to understand and measure.
I agree with you. One would think that the reduction of cost of renewable energy on solar panels, etc., it's an important incentive for them to move in a way that they don't have to think twice. But I think you sell also solar. You also sell solar panels.
We do, yes.
Yes.
Are you interested in?
Yes, I am. Yes, and the heat pumps and everything, and I want IKEA to do it for me as well. But I don't want to build it, no, like with the instruction. No, anyway, I want to just plug in and then go. But so this is the thing. So many of the solutions will make have a cost reduction implication, but do they understand that or not?
Of course, they do. But exactly as you said, people are looking for simplicity in solutions. I'll give you another example. Now, this is both business-to-business customers, but it's really any customer to IKEA. We initiated, I think we launched it at Glasgow, so that must have been 4 years ago. And when was Glasgow? Anyways, so we launched a shop-in-shop in IKEA called Sustainable Life at Home, where we basically zoom in on waste, water and energy. That's relevant for any office or whatnot as well. When we communicated the benefits from a climate perspective, there was sort of an interest. But people don't get megawatt hours and whatnot, or don't relate to it. When we shared the savings, the monetary savings, it's been our biggest growing business part of IKEA. So again, when we share with people that you can save the planet, you can contribute to something good, and you save some money on it, it works fantastically.
Yeah. So Women Business did with potential Energy, a partner, a report on the business narrative, the business case for climate action, and it's called Return on Responsibility. And the first line is talk about materiality, not morality. So this, when we say it as simple as that, it has created some like, well, listen, we also need to talk about morality, right? But then in the business sector, how, anyway, I'd love your take on that phrase. Talk materiality, not morality, or talk morality and materiality. How would you take it?
Well, I think, first of all, I think we should avoid preaching. And in particular, there is a built-in risk when we put size as a denominator. So the big company speaks to the small and so on. There are all sorts of sins combined with that approach. But I do believe we need to speak about both. So I think, again, to Oli's point, people are driven by both the ethical standpoint in it and the money. The issue today is that there is a myth out there that climate smart means additional cost. It's a very strong myth out there, and it's absolutely fundamentally wrong in every aspect. And I think it's one of the most important things for us to do that. You can't speak to that from a theoretic point of view. You have to share examples. Again, every time I've seen us in IKEA touch carbon, we touch cost. Every time. There is only good return on investment. And the only cases where we haven't been able to prove it yet is when we're up against policies, subsidies of the opposite and so forth. So at least when you set the economic parameters right, it's basically anything that has to do with waste is costly. So when you combine that natural economics and you share the examples, then people get it. But then I think people are also, people are motivated by seeing what happens to the world, what happens to every community in the world around us, and almost everybody wants to be part of, the solution here. So again, I think if we provide people with simple tools, how they can in any industry take their first actions, I think it will be successful. Which means we will have a lot of hairdressers in IKEA maybe in the future.
I think you have so many lines, new lines, and we look forward to that. So we have a great opportunity because not every day you sit with the CEO of IKEA. You are probably consumers of IKEA. So please, if you want, come here to ask any questions. And while you're thinking about that, the question that you might ask, I want to turn to something that is not as joyful. So I come from Spain, and we had seen horrible floods and people not prepared for it. And so we're going to see that, and we heard from Mastercard that they didn't start with mitigation, they start with adaptation because they have hurricanes every year or many per year. So, how are we going to also start to help our consumers be ready for what it is to come?
Wow, it's a big topic. The event in Valencia was shocking and so regretful. It was and we experienced, of course, that in IKEA firsthand, the human tragedy, the human losses involved. Our store in the area that was hard hit was luckily built. It's one of the constructions that had a garage underneath. So the flooding impacted the parking space fundamentally. But the store basically had about 130 people, co-workers and customers that were not able to leave. And then Garda Civil and the communities basically transported and flew in about 800 people who stayed for almost 2 days in the store. Luckily we had food,
and beds,
showers, beds, we have a lot.
And soon hairdressers.
And everybody had IKEA dress on because they didn't have clothes. It was an absolutely terrible situation. This was the 6th time in this year that we in IKEA only have been in societies that are hard hit by weather impacts, extreme weather impacts. 2 monster storms in Florida, Dubai, China, Central Europe. So again, I think you're absolutely right. We are intensifying the discussions in IKEA. How do we do the adaptation? It leads to practical things to make sure that the equipment of our stores, that we need to move some of the equipment from the basement to the rooftops. We need to look into some of our properties that are actually in high-risk areas and so forth. And then I think I would also say I welcome your questions. We probably need to do a better job in finding answers to it.
Yes, I agree with you. And I worked in this topic a few years ago, and one of the things that I always say, you know, companies are really good at building resilience for themselves, for their stores. But if they don't build resilience in the communities where they operate, then they will not come back to business anytime soon. And we're seeing this firsthand. But I don't want us to live with these sad thoughts, but rather, you know, look with hope about what can we achieve. We're here at COP. It is an interesting COP, to say the least. And so, as you are approaching many leaders here, what is the message that you're bringing to them more broadly? You know, what needs to happen in the next year?
No, I think we are here. You know much more of the COP than I do, so normally I ask you for advice to understand what's going on. But you can say, for some people, this is more of a transitional COP maybe. I think for us as a business, this is important for two reasons. One is I think it's important for us loyalty to the importance of the topic. We will show up at every COP to start with, regardless of what the expectations of decisions are. Secondly, I think as a business community, we are on a track to, I hope, resolve the silo in the process between private and public. So we have seen, of course, if I go a couple of COPs back and so on, we were totally disintegrated. We still are to a certain extent, but together with Simon at UNCCC, together with a lot of organizations, we are starting to mobilize, and I think cracking the code of the process where how we actually ensure that businesses like ours engage with the policymakers. We don't want to interfere with the negotiations. We don't want to interfere with the sensitive processes that are demanding us there. But we want to make sure that the common pledges or needs from a policy shift are known to the negotiators. Unlike the myth out there that we are disintegrated, unwilling, not at all. We are encouraged. Unlike a lot of the thoughts that we are asking for money, we're not. That we need to develop technology, no, we have the technology that is needed. So it's a collaboration around permitting, around speed of shifting infrastructures, moving money from old economy to new economy and so forth that is needed. It's going to happen. There is, and you know, the process is irreversible as to the statements you have on the wall. It's just a matter of how fast we can deliver to the new economy.
Yeah. So I know, there are not that many CEOs at this COP, and I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I think you might not have come, but you said, yes, I'm coming. Or maybe you were coming anyway, but I think you changed your plans to be here and to be here now. And for that, we thank you, because honestly, we need leadership like the one that you're showing. And it's not a single leadership. You always work with group of leaders at the World Economic Forum, at the B Team, at UN Global Compact. So you do talk on behalf of many businesses, inspire. But we honestly need more leaders to come and to show and to engage. But for what we have now, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all,
Thank
and
you
let's
for your
keep
work.
moving.
Thank you.